Hey everyone, welcome back to 2industry. And as you can see, again, my name is Hill because I have this fancy name tag. That's what classifies me as Hill. And I have
Still?
Mike Games.
My underwear says it's Mike.
Anyway, and we have Andrew on our far left. We just finished. We just finished our segment where we were talking about: do we really need VGA? Do we need video game award shows? And what's the point of that? Now, what's interesting is who is your boy making fun of Phil Ames, and he's saying Reggie Fils-Aime,
Joel McHale.
Joe McHale.
Reggie Fils-Aime.
Yeah, right. Saying, hey, how did you feel about the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One? So asking the president of Nintendo America, how does he feel about the other of Sony and Microsoft releasing their systems? It has to be a very uncomfortable conversation. That's why we're going to have that conversation here. How is Nintendo?
Don't do that, by the way. Don't call other companies and ask them how they feel about the other, person's
No.
product.
No,
It's
that's
just an asshole thing to
No,
do.
that's one thing to actually ask them, but to ask them on national stage and award
No,
show.
it's an asshole thing to do in general. Like, talk about your friends, but I mean, the companies obviously they're not going to tell you.
Yeah, they can't.
Honestly, what they think.
And what's interesting too, and as we're already segueing into this, Nintendo's in a difficult situation.
What?
Yes, because they were the first ones to come out with the next gen console
Last year?
which was the Wii U,
Next gen.
and they have the games.
No, they do have the games. They do have the games.
Well, do they have like the first I keep saying first party games that can actually carry their Nintendo game systems like they have in the past? All right, give me an example. Give me an example other than Pikmin 3.
Super Mario 3D.
Super
And
Mario
that came
3D.
out how long?
That came out last month.
After
or
the
2 months
Wii
ago.
U came out?
I'm just saying. He asked for, and I gave him an answer.
Okay, all right. So, well, I mean, Xbox has released all their sales numbers. They sold like 2 million in like the past week or something.
Yeah.
It's something like
just
that.
2
2
Sony.
weeks or whatever.
And Sony is like
2.1 or
is just like
2.4.
throwing out PlayStations
But
out
that's
the
only
window.
because they've been out a little bit longer. So
a week longer. Yeah.
Wii U has been out for a goddamn year.
And
Well-
the new console's already outsold
I,
them.
mean, I would say this. I think the numbers I was looking at are projected to be just as much as the GameCube was, as far as having that out there.
So you think this is the GameCube of the Nintendo generation?
of
Or-
recently, yeah.
Of this new next generation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just-
So that means the next system is going to be the Wii of changing the game.
Possibly. I mean, I don't know exactly.
I'm just
but
making up shit.
as
now.
long as they're realistic in their numbers and they're not overproducing, and they keep coming out with quality games. Their first-person games, I think, are amazing.
Well, that's what they're doing now. I mean, they're kind of realistic on what they're producing.
Right.
It's just what's so difficult is that their system is not filling next gen for just the regular gamers. If that makes sense. We don't have a lot of Andrix that are really fanboyish. Actually, I take that back.
I'm disappointed in Nintendo. Don't get me wrong, but it's a game company I believe in, and I don't want to see them go under.
Well, that's my debate there because I don't believe that they're going to go under as well. But really, to talk about how are they going to hold up against Xbox One and PlayStation 4? What avenues do they have? What do you think they could actually do? They're really.
I don't think their issue was the games. Well, I mean, it is. I don't think they prepared well enough for the games, but I think it's also the console itself. It's not as powerful as the new next-gen consoles. It's as powerful as the previous gen consoles.
Right. Well, power really comes into a factor when you're looking at graphics, right?
Well, Nintendo's deal, and it's always been this way. It's about the game, not
Exactly.
about the graphics.
Exactly.
And if you look at Steam now, and I know it's kind of a hard comparison, but go with me on this. Is that Steam? Their games like you have Papers, Please, and all these other great games on Steam that aren't graphically intense,
Right.
But they're amazing games. Gone Home is another one, and that could easily run on the Wii.
Exactly.
But
Hell, even the 3DS. The 3DS is the highest selling. Well,
Handheld.
Yeah, and Telltale games obviously you could run on them. So it's not so much graphically intense games like your Call of Duties and whatnot.
Right.
It really is the gameplay, and I think that's where their head is.
Mhm.
That they don't need to put all that processing power in there, even though that's what a lot of people look for. Kind of like look for a laptop or anything.
Right.
So I'm hoping that they're able to get those developers on there. they know they can produce their own games. Their games are quality games.
Right.
They've never, as far as I know, most of their first party games, their own party games are pretty spot on.
I think really where their struggle is exactly how you said. It's not the power that the system can produce, because it still comes out with some very beautiful games.
Right.
It's the novelty that came with it, because Nintendo's all about that novelty factor, and they had the gamepad. And I think whenever they produced this idea to developers, they really were like, okay, you can definitely make a game for our system, but you have got to make something with this gamepad. And I can envision developers out there saying, well, what the fuck are we going to do with this?
Well, it was actually a really good idea for the
Still
games.
is.
Yeah,
That was.
well, nobody's really done much with
That's
it.
what I'm saying.
Well, no, I mean, I mean when Zombie U was a great implementation.
Exactly.
Yeah, anyways,
Implementation. Yeah, whatever.
Of that, and then even playing, the new Mario game. It's like I love playing on that thing. I think it's great, and the graphics are just as good as watching.
And those were two developers, one being Nintendo and the other one who made Zombie U
I
again?
think it was EA.
Yeah, I
Right,
think it was. Yeah.
that were very focused on making a game specifically that the gamepad could use. And I believe that these other developers, the same struggles that they deal with the Wii, they look at these controls and they're like, well, I want to make a game, but I don't know how to make an interactive game.
Well, I think it's more about not so much that they can do it, because I have a feeling they could easily do it. I mean, having
The
a second
developers.
screen, yeah, because I mean, you look at Sony and even Xbox. Xbox has this the smart screen, or
Smart
whatever,
glass.
smart glass.
Well,
and
that's
and then Nintendo. I mean, Sony has the other system for Vita, and but Nintendo. Their problem is they just can't. They can't get the developers on there, because you specifically have to make it for the old gen, right?
right.
And so you're putting that money into just one console, as
Right.
opposed to every console where you can get out.
That's a
on
good
PlayStation
idea.
and
That's a good
Xbox.
thought. Right. Right. Because a lot of these game developers, since they're making these massive games, these AAA games,
Right.
and they want to cover as much ground as possible, when you make something for PS4 and Xbox One, you're really scaling it down if you want to go and produce it for the Wii U. That's right.
Exactly. So Last of Us only sold so many, but if it was on multiple platforms, it probably would have won Game of
Well,
the Year.
Naughty Dog is owned by Sony,
Oh.
so that's different. But I see what
They're
you're saying.
friends.
With
benefits.
What's interesting about Naughty Dog, and I hope a Naughty Dog person hears this, they're like the roommate that stays at the other person's apartment. Like Sony is the apartment that owns the apartment, and Naughty Dog just stays there. They just kind of
Sony pays for
Yeah,
everything.
but Sony pays for everything. But they keep bringing in the hot girls. All right, anyway.
But
What
go
were
for it.
you gonna say?
I was gonna say, what do you guys think about what other companies are saying to Nintendo? Like, you know what? Just pull a Sega, stop worrying about the console, and just start developing.
That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I hope it doesn't happen, and I don't see it happening at least for like 10 years. Maybe the next console, if it flops as well, then I could probably see them pondering that. I think they have enough money right now; they're okay.
Just to become a software.
Yeah, I mean, they have no. Sega launched two systems that were failures.
All right.
And as much as I love the Dreamcast, I didn't get the Saturn. It was probably the one thing I didn't
Right.
get. But they were going about it all wrong as far as hardware goes. And they lost all their money in hardware, the 32X, the
Right.
Sega CD,
Right.
there's all these attachments.
Right.
Yeah.
They lost all that money in that hardware.
And you could tell they were trying to figure it out. And what's interesting about Dreamcast, or well, Sega in general, their downfall is because they were trying to become too advanced.
And the Dreamcast was way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
The only thing that was missing, and I think this is what would have saved it, if they had a DVD player.
A DVD player.
Because everybody was waiting for the PlayStation 2 to have that.
Yeah.
And that was going to be their DVD player and everything.
It's true.
And they were just like, well, I can go get the PlayStation 2 and we'll do everything I want.
Right. And whereas with Nintendo, they're kind of struggling getting these developers to buy in on to
jump on board.
Right.
So that's going to be a tough thing to follow. I mean, on what they're going to do. What do you think from a Nintendo standpoint? What do you think they're going to do?
I think they're going to still develop I mean, as the negative that they are right now, they're in a spot where they can develop not only the games they already have, but they can actually come up with new games. So new characters.
Just come. Okay, so there you see them actually coming up with a whole new IP.
Yeah, I do. They're in a spot right now where they can do that, and it won't hurt them as much because
I'm going to say this as friendly as possible. I think that's bullshit.
you don't think they will.
I don't think Nintendo.
Well, they already came out with Kid Icarus for the 3DS.
That's the thing. Is like that's not a new IP really.
Oh, okay.
They will. They're not going to come out with a new character. They will rehash a character. They will redo it.
I think they're going to come out with a new character. I'd be willing to.
They're going to come out with like Bubbles the Frog or some shit.
No, I don't know what it's going to be.
It's not. I don't.
But I do have a feeling that they'll try something because they can now, and it won't. And I don't think it'll hurt them as bad.
Okay, because I hope you're right because that would be a great idea.
Oh, I hope a lot of things are Nintendo, and I'm always wrong. Nintendo. So I don't know where their head is. I'm hoping that we're one time, I'll get something right.
I believe what they're doing is they're doing like a lot of these technology companies are figuring it out, like the most popular ones. They're kind of siloing themselves in and focusing intently on what they feel like their world is. What I mean by that, they're like, if we just put our blinders on and focus on ourselves, then we can be successful. And a lot of technology companies were successful in doing that. Microsoft being one of them as of late. Instead of trying to keep up with the Joneses like Sony and Xbox.
I think they're at that spot where I think Sony and Xbox, they're barely making anything on the system. I think Nintendo's at that spot where they're still making money on the system, which they have to.
Right.
And
well, if they sell any.
Do you think another drop in price maybe will?
I don't see that happening. I mean, really, I think now it's about the games.
Okay.
Now it's about
because we're waiting for Mario Universe or Mario in Time.
I think what a lot
Mario
of
in
people,
Time. Just that's on this.
what people are waiting for, I think, are a new Zelda and a new Metroid. I think that's
what you're
really
waiting for,
when,
Mike.
a better Metroid.
yeah.
That's what you're waiting for, Mike.
Well, I think that's what all the
So I'm waiting for it.
gamers are
Could
waiting
you
for.
could you imagine just like a Metroid Prime on the Wii U with a gamepad? That'd be amazing.
Yeah, because those maps are intense.
Right.
Having the map on the control would be cool.
That would be because there's a lot of there's a good canvas for good concepts for that gamepad. I just think developers, and I'm going to get killed for this, but I think they're kind of tunnel vision that, okay, what we have to do is we have to come up with a premise for a game, make the game, and then just put it out on as many consoles as we can so we can make back money for what we just produced. And what Nintendo's saying is, hey, can you just, think of it a little bit differently to cater to our system? And that's going to make you successful. And yes, no other system really has a gamepad, so you can't reproduce your game on other game systems.
Well, I think you can with the Smart Glass and then on the PlayStation
Well,
and the PS Vita.
Well, the smart glass is not going to work like the gamepad and the like
you
where it's
could
like
put, like-
completely interactive.
Well, yeah, it kind of is. You could actually have maps and see other stuff from the gamepad, or at least that's what Microsoft is
actually,
pushing.
Well, from my understanding, like it's interactive as you can see it as like a layout and information purposes, but to actually control the game from smart glass. Will you be able to?
Yeah, you won't be able to hold up.
Yeah, you won't be able to hold up the smart glass
But-
and navigate.
But
and
I can
open
send out,
doors.
like for example, in Assassin's Creed, you can send your ships out when you're not even playing the game to go do stuff.
No, and smart glass is a great idea.
Yeah.
I really like it, but I don't think that's going to make it easier for Nintendo to convince developers to say, hey, make your games cater to us, and of course you can spread it out to other systems like Microsoft.
Yeah.
Right. I think if anybody's got it right, it's probably PlayStation with the Vita.
I agree.
That's,
right.
I mean, basically, it's the gamepad on the Vita.
And they can sell two systems.
That's exactly their
Sony
point.
was like, hell yeah.
Yeah, with Nintendo, it's you get that, and we'd like you to implement it. Sony is like, if you want to buy it, it's just it enhances your experience.
And
more.
they could say something like, you can buy our PS4 and also buy the Vita, and it can kind of equal out to the same amount as the Xbox One.
Oh, right. Well, I don't think the Vita's $100, but
well, if you market it just right, it'll look like $100 to a customer. So, all right. So we're gonna finish our segment there. We hopefully, back to Reggie.
Reggie Fils-Aime.
Yeah. I like to call him
I still believe in you, Reggie.
Oh, I think he's the man. I just don't think he has much to work with.
Yeah, I believe he's probably catering to a lot of people in Japan
Mhm.
and their thought of the process, and he's trying to educate them in the American thought of process, and it's probably a battle for him.
Yeah,
And
I would imagine.
and a lot of things,
So-
especially with Xbox being primarily their fan bases in the U.S.
Xbox
And-
dominates the Western
Well, the
Yeah,
U.S.
the
market,
US, yeah.
And Europe.
but Europe is PlayStation.
PlayStation 4.
Japan is PlayStation.
Well, that's true.
And even U.S. is it's second to right after. Oh, I'm sorry,
Right.
it's second to right after Xbox. So
Okay. All right. Well, in our next segment, we're going to talk about the games that we're currently playing and how we feel about those. So definitely check us out and press buttons.
pew pew pew.